Guys, this Moondrop product is on the edge of greatness. That's a little bit of a mixed bag. Namaste, we are DHRME. Dudes hyping really massive earphones. These are not earphones and these are not really massive. The build quality on these is fantastic, guys. There's some things you expect from an audiophile company to do well, and there's some things you expect that they won't do well. And this is like, it's all over the place. So let's start very quickly. First off, these cost about $70 to $90 a euros. So that's I'd say a mid-range price for ANC headphones. And I think some things Moondrop has nailed, and that is, I think, to start with the build quality. There is absolutely no creak on these guys. Look at this. I can hear my tinnitus louder than the creak of these, which is a good sign. And they're also really comfortable. The ear pads here, they are big, they are plush, and they are so soft, and they really cushion my ears. And I love how comfortable these headphones are. The headband is also nice and padded. I never had any pressure on my crown. There's this nice kind of textile feel to the top of the headband, also a nice touch. And the design, guys, there's some nice design elements. This kind of slanted line, this angle looks really nice, the Moondrop font, and you get buttons. But before we go to that, these are also foldable, and that's also a nice kind of thing to have. You can make them really compact and they can go into a bag or whatever. And speaking of bag, unfortunately, that's a downside. There's no hard shell case. You get this quite nice looking, but at the end of the day, not very protective, soft case with faux leather. Other than that, yeah, the build is excellent. They're very light. It's like super lightweight, but there are some downsides. And the first one is what I mentioned was the buttons. First off, we love buttons. Give us buttons over touch control any day. And as you can see here, you get an ANC button, you get a volume button, volume minus, you get a play, pause and power and pairing button, and you get a volume plus button. One of the weird things is that the volume plus button is here. You expect normally if your thumb is resting, the volume down button to be here and the volume up button to be here. So that's kind of inverted. But the other thing I guess now you can see is that these buttons aren't very raised, guys. So it's pretty close to impossible to feel which button you're hitting, and especially on the volume rocker here, because there are 3 buttons all kind of next to each other. The ANC button is separated, so I had more success hitting that in the 2-3 weeks that I've been testing these. But the volume minus and plus has always been a challenge and continues to be so. So I wish they would have fixed that they cannot fix in a software update, unfortunately. It's part of the hardware. But other than that, pretty happy with the hardware. And now let's go back to that mixed bag theme. The mixed bag this is an audio company. So you expect it to sound really good, right? But you don't expect them to do great with phone calls. So in quiet conditions, these are pretty usable.
Moondrop Edge in quiet conditions. Pop, pop, popsicle, ice, ice, icicle, test, testing, 1, 2, 3. Pop, pop, popsicle, ice, ice, icicle, test, testing, 1, 2, 3.
But when it came to wind, not so much, especially winds above 3 meters per second.
Pop, pop, popsicle, ice, ice, icicle, test, testing, 1, 2, 3. Pop, pop, popsicle, icicle, test, 3.
Usually 4 meters per second is kind of like most headphones start breaking down, but this guy wasn't performing at 3 meters per second either. But in gentle breezes of about 2 meters per second, again, passable.
Pop, pop, popsicle, ice, ice, icicle, test, 3.
When you go to noisy conditions,
Pop, pop, popsicle, ice, ice, icicle, test, testing, 1, 2, 3. Pop, pop, popsicle, ice, ice, icicle, test, testing, 1, 2, 3. That's the Moondrop Edge in noisy conditions.
these were pretty good actually. You got a good sense of your environment. So I think if your environment is loud, it's going to catch it. If your environment is quiet, it's going to catch that as well. What I really liked was that the voice wasn't super processed. So you get many of these headphones that kind of try to suck out the background noise and just pipe in your voice. And sometimes they also end up sucking up part of your voice because it lives in the same frequencies. Did not experience that with this. And as a fuckman, you get plenty of controls on these guys. You get answer, hang up, volume change, ANC control, but you cannot mute the call directly using one of these buttons, which is a bit of a downside. But overall, I'm surprised that Moondrop did this well at calls, because we've reviewed some of the older earbuds and they have been pretty ordinary for phone calls. Now, we talked about phone calls, but these are also ANC headphones, and I would say they're similar in terms of ANC to the Sony WH-CH720N. I know that without a teleprompter, which shows you what's in my brain, and there's a bit too much of that stuff in my brain. But ANC would be tier C because it cancels out a decent bit of noise. Like, I'm in a quiet room now and I can hear the AC running. This will easily cancel that out. But don't expect it to do heavy duty work when you're on a big flight or something. It cancels out the lows, the mids, the highs, and the only reason it doesn't quite make it into tier B is like the low end is still there. Whereas if you compare it to something on the final UX 2000, that doesn't really have much of a low end in ANC mode. Otherwise, this would be in tier B. Now, transparency, it is in tier B because again, I've had very good environmental awareness with these around. Again, I'm not talking like Bose or Sony level, so don't expect that. But you can have these on and still have a sense of what's happening around you, which is what I think you need with transparency. Now with the voice, it does something weird, as in it's amplifying the mids, but it's also doing some weird processing and the voices end up being not quite clear or, fully comprehensible. But transparency is all right. Nothing to write home about, nothing to be embarrassed about. Couple of other things. This has 48 hours of battery life. Again, very decent for this form factor. We are seeing numbers like that constantly these days. And I think anything about 30 or 40, you really don't have to worry about battery life. You get fast charging as well, I think, with USB-C. So that part is good. You also get multi-point. In my experience, it was a bit iffy now and then. It sometimes connected and sometimes didn't. But at least it has multi-point. So it's got all the basics down. So as we said, from an audio company, you would not expect great build, decent calls, but it's doing all of that, guys. And that's why I was surprised and I thought this is bringing it to the edge of greatness, as I said in the beginning. But the sound is also a mixed bag. Now, guys, we need to be serious about the sound because, audiophiles and sound, they're very serious about that stuff. But anyway, I like sound as well. So on the default tuning, I like these guys with ANC on. Very clear. It sounds so natural. It's one of the most natural sounding set of cans I've heard. And that's great, right? So again, we're going to the mixed bag theme. Great sound on ANC, default, balanced. I would say maybe the mid bass is a bit missing for me. I like to have a bit more mid bass, but there's quite a bit of sub bass. So I guess they're going for that clear tuning as they keep advertising as well. Now, let me switch to the other side. You turn off ANC and you get this completely different character, right? You get like a Sony Bose kind of sound with a bit less bass, I'll grant you, but this is a completely different sound signature now. And it's no longer that kind of audiophile, low bass sound you are getting with ANC off. It still sounds great, guys, I must say, but it is not what you would expect Moondrop to sound like. I like the treble on these. Very kind of, not tame, but they are not unnecessarily sparkly and not fatiguing. And I realized that when I was listening to a metal playlist on Apple Music, and I listened to it for like 2 hours and then realized, oh, wow, I was enjoying the music, A, so it wasn't like boring. But B, it wasn't fatiguing at all. So I like that part. You get EQ presets, guys. You get 5 EQ presets, including one called Violin Solo. Is that the EQ preset that's important, Moondrop? I don't know. Maybe it is. Maybe you guys are like heavily into violins. But yeah, so I would say the balance and the extra bass are the only ones that I used. Maybe the other presets help you. But the extra bass is also not going to make this like Sony level. Yeah, so you're still going to get kind of a more nuanced bass expression. So that was good. What was not good? No custom EQ. What? I know Moondrop can do it, but they didn't for this product. So that was the downside. It advertises LDAC. I could never get LDAC working. I checked the manual. There's nothing in there about LDAC, how to enable it. Yeah, I think with LDAC, these will sound really good, especially the highs. But I think even without LDAC, they sound very nice. Clarity in the mids, like I said, and that's for me the highlight, the standout feature of the Moondrop Edge. You want to hear another downside if you're an audiophile, but you can't plug these into a cable because these are completely wireless. The only port you're getting here is a USB Type-C. That's it. So it's quite a mixed bag, right? I mean, and I think they can fix quite a bit of this with firmware updates, especially the EQ shift between ANC on and off. And Moondrop, if you're listening, please take a look at that. You guys are an audio company. I know you know how to fix that. But the problem with Moondrop is, I'm sure they're already working on the next 2 products. Like, we have a lot of products to review, right? Like, we had the Moondrop Ultrasonic, we got in, I started testing it. Then there was the Moondrop Mocha that came, then I started testing that. Then there was another Moondrop product that dropped, and I was like, whoa, okay. I can't just be testing Moondrop products. So I took a pause on that. So maybe those videos are coming still. But that's what I'm worried about with Moondrop. They release a product and then they release a product again, which is great from a product innovation standpoint. But from a customer, I would rather that they spend 6 months on this and at least give us some updates to fix some of those glaring issues. That's it, guys. Thank you so much for watching.
But a quick disclosure, guys.
Moondrop
Did send out their product to us for review purposes, but it's not sponsored by any means. A big thanks to our 4 levels of patrons and YouTube members as always. Popsicle, Icicle members, thanks a bunch. But a special thanks goes out to our tested folks, and a very special thanks goes out to our top tier, which is the Fuckman tier. A special thanks to Rachel, Gamma Panda, and Paula. You've been amazed by the view, and we've been DHRME. Dewey.